The SIG P365 X Macro. Is it an impressive carry gun or a disappointing one? So the pistol has many impressive attributes. A full-size Picatinny light rail instead of those weird, unique light rails that a lot of these other carry guns have. It has a longer grip and it has a backstrap system to allow for a fuller grip. It has a lower bore axis than the previous 365 models. It has this porting up front, quasi-porting, quasi-compensator system that, supposedly reduces recoil. So it has a lot of features going for it. Oh, and of course the 17-round magazine, you're getting 17 rounds, which is normally duty capacity, but in a concealed carry gun. Until you realize that, one, this pistol isn't that small. This pistol is actually bigger than a Glock 19 in terms of grip length, and it's about the same size in terms of grip length as a Glock 17. Now, there's plenty of people out there that are totally fine with that, where they normally carry 17s, and a thinner Glock 17 or thinner full-size gun is still very impressive and a good option for them. But this is also an $800 pistol, and as we continue through the video, you'll see why I don't think this pistol is worth $800. So one of the quote-unquote impressive features, these porting cuts, compensation cuts, whatever you want to call them, on the slide, don't seem to do a whole lot. I recently got to put my buddy's 365 slide on the macro frame, and I could shoot it just as well as the standard macro slide, realizing that the main contributor to this gun's shootability is that longer frame with the larger backstrap and that lower bore axis. So the cuts here, which seems to be what the main feature of the pistol is, doesn't do a whole lot. It does do some stuff, it does help a little bit, but it's not a traditional compensator with an expansion chamber. It's not traditional porting where the barrel is cut as well. So it's kind of this half-assed middle measure sort of thing that doesn't really do a whole lot at the end of the day. Speaking of the slide as well, we have the finish on the slide. The finish is abysmal. Just carrying this for a few months, treating it just the same as all my other carry guns, there's been so much rust and corrosion on this slide. Just taking it in and out of the holster, yeah, there's gonna be holster wear, but there should not be so much rust forming on this slide, forming on the sights, compared to something like a Glock 19 or Glock 48 that I've carried for years. Neither of those pistols ever had any real rust forming on them, any real corrosion, yet this slide does not seem to be holding up to just a few months. So it's very disappointing, especially for an $800 pistol. I would expect the finish to at least be on par with Glock and other companies out there, yet it seems like the finish on this slide is terrible. So talking about the finish, we can't ignore the magazine finish. These are $60 magazines, another overpriced item in my opinion, and the finish has been terrible. Tons of rust forming on them as well. Part of the actual magazine finish itself is just completely eroded away. I don't know if it's from rust, corrosion, sweat, whatever, but none of my other metal magazine guns have had this issue either. Some of my S15 magazines from Shield Arms for the Glock 48, the original ones, did have some finish issues, but I carried them for well over a year and they never got this bad. So the finish is just abysmal on these magazines, and what's weird is these magazines are the newest magazines I've purchased. I purchased them just a couple months ago to replace the magazines I was carrying and to get some more range mags like I have here. These are my range mags and they have less wear, less rust, less corrosion on them, and they get shot more. There's been maybe a mag each put through these just to test function. These have had quite a few rounds put through them and they're in better condition and shape than my carry magazines that never get shot. Another issue with the magazines I've had is when dropping empty ones on hard surfaces, I've had the followers pop out. So in dry fire at home or even at the range if I'm dropping it on concrete, the followers I've had twice now pop out of the top of the magazine. I haven't had that issue recently, but I have had that issue a couple times. And while that's not something to be concerned about in a gunfight or in a self-defense situation, I would hope for a $60 magazine, once again, I'm not getting followers that come out of the magazine just from regular use. So you might be saying, it's a tool, who cares about the finish? And you're right, it's just a tool, and in the grand scheme of things, finish, cosmetics, they don't really matter. However, a poor quality finish like this on a pistol of this price, poor quality finish on magazines of that price, that's emblematic of the effort that SIG is putting into their manufacturing process, and it's not a good effort. SIG recently has been having lots of issues in terms of quality control. There's been now documented witness cases of the P320 going off on its own, completely unprovoked. There's been documented cases of people having issues with the 365 where the trigger just completely stops working. It was Tactical Advisor who put up a video just a couple months ago where his 365 XL, the trigger was completely non-functional and would only work if he squeezes it like really hard, which is really concerning if you think about it, because this is not a competition gun. This is not a plinking gun. This is a carry gun. This is something you could depend your life on, yet a lot of issues, a lot of quality control problems, And the issues that I'm simply seeing, to me, are emblematic of something that may not be entirely safe and reliable. So looking here between this Macro and this Glock 19, it's about the same size. The Macro is a tad longer, but mostly the same size. Like I said, the Macro is a little more in that Glock 17 length, and it's not even that much thinner. I'm not gaining a ton more concealment between the Macro and the Glock 19. Yes, I am gaining 2 more rounds, but I'm also paying $800. And a Glock 19 is anywhere from $500 to $600, $800. I don't know about you guys, but $100 a round doesn't seem that worth it in terms of capacity. And this also takes Glock magazines, right? The biggest magazines you can get for the Macro are the Macro magazines. There are other 365 magazines on the market, but they don't work in the Macro because they are smaller magazines for the smaller 365 pistols. So comparing this Glock and this Macro, they're just as shootable. I can shoot them just as well, but this costs me less money. This takes more readily available magazines. This pistol I've had for years and years, and the finish is still in better condition than this pistol. I just don't see how this is worth $800 and this is so much cheaper, yet so much better. So at the end of the day, I'm not gonna be getting rid of my Macro. I'm still gonna be keeping it. I'll still be shooting it to see if any more long-term reliability issues pop up or anything. But for now, I'm probably not gonna be carrying it. I'm probably gonna just be going back to something like this, a nice, reliable Glock 19, because it may not have all the features of the Macro, but it has the reliability that the Macro may not have, that other people have been having issues with this, but they haven't been having issues with this. So if you have a Macro, I'm not saying you gotta get rid of it, you gotta go sell it. It's still great to use if it's still working for you. But personally, I'm no longer a huge proponent of it, and I think there's better carry pistols on the market. So if this video is helpful to you in determining whether or not you wanna purchase a Macro, or if you just enjoyed watching the video, go ahead and leave a like down below. If I pissed you off because you're a huge SIG fanboy, well, there's a dislike button for a reason. And otherwise, guys, go ahead, hop into the comments, continue the conversation. If you've had issues with SIG pistols, if you've had issues with Glocks, I want to hear about it. I like to learn about issues people have had with pistols because that helps me figure out what I want to use and what I might want to make a video on. As always, guys, I'm releasing new videos every Saturday, so subscribe and stay tuned.